Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today we're just going to do a very quick look at Onoda. This is a game from Salt and Pepper Games. As you can see, it is a prototype, but it looks very, very good already. This is basically ready to roll. And the theme of the game is the life of Hiro Onoda, who was a Japanese soldier who was sent to perform guerrilla warfare on an island in the Philippines. But he was told to fight on no matter what until the war was over. But after receiving the news that the Japanese had surrendered many times over the course of 30 years, he refused to believe things were over, and he just kept up his mission until his former commander, who had taken on a totally different job by then, had to put his uniform back on and relieve Onoda of his duties. So I actually think it's kind of a sad story. Onoda himself has written a memoir, which this game relies on heavily, but this is a tale of a man who's trying to get what he considers to be the job done while managing his paranoia all alone in the woods, basically. So the way the game works is very, very simple. What will happen is that every round out of 6 rounds that each represent 5 years that Onoda spent on the island, you're going to draw one mission card. So, for example, we would have electricity. We can spy on the new lighting system. So it tells us what we're going to have to do to pass the mission, what happens if we're successful, and then what happens if we fail. What's interesting about the missions is that they are completely optional. You can choose whether or not to do them. However, if you want to get some honor points in the game, you're going to have to get in there and do them, and then also the rewards are often pretty significant. So for each round, you're going to have a mission card. And then also each round is going to basically go on as long as you want. You can take as many actions as you want. It's just the actions get costlier and costlier as you go. So Onoda will always start here in Kyampu. And he can basically take 4 different types of actions. You can move. So every time you move somewhere, you have to add an alarm token to the place that you moved to. So, you can't just move wherever with impunity. You have to keep an eye on that. You can raid. So let's say that you wanted to raid this area. We'd have to overcome the alarm, but that's actually good for now. So basically, every time you have to do an alarm check, you are pulling from this draw bag that has tokens with values 0 to 6 in them, and you need to kind of pay attention to the composition of the bag to gauge your odds. So if we wanted to raid here, we would just pull from this bag, and odds are that we'd be okay. Yes, so we got a 2, that's more than the current number of alarm tokens, so we'd be able to raid and draw another token from this bag to get food. And also the other thing to note is when you do one of these checks, you put this token in the plate on the board, it doesn't go back in the bag. So you can have a sense of what has left the bag with time, but you got to keep an eye on it so that you understand your odds as you go. I would draw a token for another bit of food, perhaps. So this is a high value token, which stinks because it means it's not in the bag anymore, but it's great because it's a bunch of food for my companion and for myself. I would need to add another alarm token. And I would have to draw an event card. So some of these are good, some of these are bad. Getting a radio is actually great. We've managed to steal a radio. But some of these you keep in your hand. Some of these resolve immediately. And some of them are persistent effects throughout the remainder of a round. So you just do not know what you're going to get from the event stack. So now that I've drawn this one, however, I can just kind of hang on to it until I'm ready to use it. I can either use it to repeat a check, or I can use it to activate the radio and get a food resource, basically. Other actions I can take are repair. So again, I have to pass an alarm check to do the repair. I have to add alarm to where I am, and then I also have to draw from the event deck. So it's not free, but I have these items in the game, like binoculars, a disguise, a med kit, a gun, a uniform, and a radio, which I could choose to repair at this point. But these go into states of repair and disrepair, and you need them for various missions. So, for example, the electricity mission, if I wanted to do it, I would travel to Tilik, and then I would have to deactivate my binoculars in addition to passing a check. The other action that I can take is accomplish a mission action. So you have to do that in the part of the island that is specified on the mission card. And then you have to do the alarm check that's stated on the mission, and you do also have to add an alarm token after you're done. Now that I've talked procedurally about what happens in the game, why does it matter? What are we doing? Throughout the game, you're going to have to manage your health so you don't die. You're going to have to manage your paranoia, because if you lose your mind, then you lose the game. And you're also tracking your victory points. So various things that happen throughout the game are going to cause you to lose your health, to gain paranoia, and then if you are, of course, succeeding at missions, then you're going to get victory points. Or I believe they're called honor points when you earn them with this marker. The other thing that you have to do is gather enough food to keep you and your crew alive. Additional food that you gain also has an added benefit, because basically you're going to go around causing alarm throughout the island. If you want to remove alarm, one alarm automatically gets removed from every location at the end of a round, but you're going to probably add more alarm than that. If you want to remove additional alarm, that's how you spend your extra food. Also note that when you or your companions get hurt, you are going to have to feed them extra in order to keep them going. So when you deactivate your companions, they initially start out pretty helpful, but then they become difficult to manage if you're not managing the other parts of the game very well. And that is basically it. If you want to end the round, all you have to do is go back to Kyanpu and declare the round is over. And then you'll advance to the next one. So you'll get a new mission card, whether you completed the previous one or not. You'll clear out a little bit of the alarm that you've generated. You'll restock your bag, and you will begin the process again. One aspect of the game I thought was quite interesting is if you look at the final score, you get points. So there's a terminological mix-up between 10 VP and honor points, but basically you're trying to convert however you did to honor points or victory points at the end of the game. So you get points for every honor point you get, that's completing missions. For every active companion, so if you keep your guys alive and well. You get 5 VP for every active object, so if you keep your stuff in good repair. You get victory points for each health point, and you also lose for each paranoia point. And paranoia is going to get pretty high. If at any point you fail a paranoia check, you're going to really regret it. And just as you would lose a game if your health reaches 0, if your paranoia reaches 10, then you'll lose because you've lost your mind. But then the final score is basically how you did across all those different sectors. So sometimes you're just a victim of madness. Other times you become a legendary figure worldwide, and apparently you get your own Funko according to the current rules text. And that kind of leads to something I find interesting about this game. I gave you the quick overview because it's a fairly simple game. Move around, do checks, try to complete missions, keep your stuff and your people in good repair. But what you're actually doing throughout the game, I think, is where it is interesting and either inspiring or upsetting, I guess, depending on how you feel about it. I consider the game to be quite sad. So these missions that you're getting honor points for, I'm not really sure that you should in all cases. I mean, so basically you're stealing stuff from people. You steal an ox from some peasants for one of the missions. I mean, these poor people on this island are being terrorized by you as you continue to fight a war that is long over. But you're destroying rice plantations, you're blowing up the jetty. Like, these are things that might make sense in the context of a truly ongoing war. But that's not actually what's happening here. You're just torturing an island full of people, and the game rewards you with honor points for that. But I'm not entirely sure that it should. The other thing that's very interesting is that these event cards, some of them are really sad, actually. So, you get notes, your friends can die. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes you hear blues and tango on the radio, and it can either do something really good for you, or it can mess your mind up even more. Sometimes you see the newspaper, and it causes a response in you because it's reporting news about a world that you are currently very, very separated from. And these are really the aspects of the game that I find the most interesting. I think that it's very hard to meaningfully portray this man's life in board game form, and I really respect that they try to do it. I think that maybe they didn't quite thread the needle perfectly, because I think that Onoda gets rewarded for stuff that is really pretty crappy if you zoom out and look at it, although from his perspective it was the best that he could do at the time. And just overall, it's interesting and sad to play a game about someone who was so cut off from the world and who was so unable for so long to accept a loss in war and to reintegrate and to live what I think probably would have been a much happier life. But I think that's what makes games interesting. I think that attempting to confront this theme and trying to create this situation on this board is one of the things that a game can do for you that maybe even just reading a book can't. Because it's one thing to read about what Onoda did. It's another to do it in a game and kind of question yourself as you try to go through the process on your own. And I think that everybody's going to maybe come away from this with a different set of feelings about it. So that is Onoda. It is from Salt and Pepper. Again, the production quality is already really high for a prototype. I respect what they're doing with this. And this is a theme that I think is maybe iffy for some people. But I also think it's very interesting that they went for it. And I am not sorry that I spent some time with this one. All right, well, thank you for watching this preview. Hopefully it gives you a sense of whether this game is for you. Please, by all means, support me on Patreon if you can. And no matter what, please like, subscribe, comment, ask questions, and most of all, happy gaming.